welcome to Conversations with Life, Season 6.
We're back.
We are so excited to be back, and we've had such an adventure. This is our longest break we've ever taken.
Yeah.
And we have decided we're going to do a theme for this season on working in groups.
Which, I mean, is what we've been doing the whole time, right? Like, we're a little group.
We've been working in a group, yeah.
Yeah.
But explain it to us, the layman's. What do you mean by working in groups?
Yeah, so we talked just before we started, we were riffing a little on, what are some of the problems with what's going on in our world, and, hyper-individualism, hyper-independence. They seem to almost be at an epidemic level right now. And it's like, where is the field of like kind of fallback, safety net support that I think we're designed to have, and maybe we used to have in tribes or communities or families, that now everybody sort of expects our therapists to take. And as somebody that does some similar kinds of support, I can't do that. I can't be anyone's whole family. Yeah. And so what are some of the ways that we can both revisit group technology from the past and also be with what's emerging as far as human evolution in how we can work with group energy and how we can work cooperatively instead of competitively.
Well, first thing that comes in here is that, we don't know how to do this. Because when we think a group, we think a group of individuals. And we want to use group field technology for our gain. I'm going to go to this thing so that I can overcome my thing, right?
Yeah. I'm going to go to AA to overcome my alcoholism. I'm going to, go to church to stop feeling lonely. Like, I'm going to go to that thing so that I can be fixed.
Yeah. Like, I'm going to go work in a classroom. I'm going to go in a classroom so that I can get the thing that I want out of it. But that's not what we're talking about. That's not group field technology. Group field technology, group field work, group field process is emergent. It's almost like biological in that way, but not like physically biological like a family, although that's an example of it. Tribal in a way, but not locked in the dogma of a tribe, of a particular tribe or geographic tribe. Group field technology is group first, is connected enough, is working in connection enough so that the group is the thing. And you are working in and through and for that group.
C.S. Lewis, The Inner Ring. This is what it's reminding me of. It's just like ringing this bell of a conversation I think you and I actually had about the difference between the inner ring and like a group that is for like a group of masters, for example, right? And we talked about this, like the good of the group versus the good of the individual.
Yeah.
And like if you have the wrong intention, you will not last in the group. And I remember thinking to myself, like, is my intention that I want to one day end up like running a school, is that going to ruin my ability to teach? And thinking about like what was my reason for my intention and what was my purpose in wanting to rise to that kind of position, and become part of that inner circle. But that same idea, like, was it for myself or was it for the good that could be done? Or Interesting.
Yeah, and I'm already getting like these like creepy, crawly, icky feelings just from some of this terminology, and I suspect some of our listeners might also, because it sounds an awful lot like the Mormon Church that I had, that my name was sworn into as an infant and that I was given to and devoted to, and I feel like one of the things that feels different about what I've been experiencing, particularly in the last few months with group fields versus what I experienced in the Mormon Church, is when you are working in a group field that is emergent instead of dogmatic, your surrender to the group automatically distinguishes you and blesses you. It literally does lift everybody. When you give something to the group, everybody wins. Where I feel like that, my experience with giving to, my positions in the church was that it was always about sacrifice. And it was always about, how much can I suffer in order to make this group thrive. And what I found is that as an individual and even my family, we suffered for that instead of being energized and blessed and reaping the blessings of the genius of every person in the group.
See, then I ask a question when I hear that. I'm like, well, some people are getting that feeling being part of a group like the Mormon Church, right? Like, there are people, this is why do these groups exist? Because they're giving some kind of good to people, right? So intention of the individual, the connection of the individual, were you forced into the sacrifice or are you blissfully trying to further the group? Does the group's makeup and intention matter, or is it about your individual makeup and intention when you go into that group that creates the emergent versus dogmatic energy?
Yeah, what's coming to mind is this conversation I was in as myself and other friends were kind of figuring out the church. We were having these conversations about what the church was, and some of us were a little bit more in, and some of us were a little more out, and we're having this conversation there's the kind of Buddhist, the Buddhist adage that don't mistake the finger pointing at the moon for the moon, right? And so one of my friends says to one of my other friends, he says, yeah, but isn't the church a pretty decent finger pointing to the moon? And to which my friend Chris said, well, I see a finger pointing at the finger. And this is the thing, right? It's like that finger keeps curling right around,
pointing at itself,
and this is the thing is this stuff is not like it's the oldest thing in the world. Family is the basic form of all our learning, development, growth, and that is the ultimate emergent field. Like that's what we're doing. That's where we are held and nurtured the most. And what happens is that group technology, that tribe technology that is in us, maybe it's in our DNA, maybe it's in our development, our psychological, what do you call that? Our evolutionary psychology, etc. And then that's used by people. And that's what I'm saying. So the reason why group fields suck and why all political systems that emphasize the group and all religions that emphasize the group end up being abusive is because they haven't done it. They've used the form without really doing the thing. And the question is the big conversations with life. Here's the big question: how do we do that in a way that doesn't happen? And what I'm going to say is, over this last summer and in my recent experiences, I've tasted it. I've tasted what it feels like to be in a cohesive group field where there's no leader and no dogma and no agenda, just human fucking being. And we're doing it. And the intelligence of that soul, the intelligence of soul in that field is so impressive that it just lights me up. We've touched it. We've done it. We've done it. Not that we've done it, but we've in a few different containers and processes with just some wonderful people who are in this question with us. We touched it.
We touched it, yeah.
We touched something that was so beautiful and profound. It was like that church thing that we were doing together. We were building fucking Zion. And I believed it. And now maybe we have the chance to actually do it without the dogma, without the finger pointing at itself. And in that power, I think that's the thing that makes the future happen. So in the division, in the materialism, in the hyper focus, in the psychoanalysis that is getting us in that is moving us in circles, I think there's this thing. And I think groups really, this thing, whatever this is that we touched, that's been taught and understood, and now maybe just right now, human beings are at an evolutionary place spiritually, emotionally, where we could do this.
Yeah, and I feel like, for me, one of the things that was so frustrating with my experience in the church was that I kept feeling like I was giving more, and like my soul wasn't being touched. I wasn't being met. My needs weren't even being asked about, let alone honored. And so there was always this like big question mark of like, why isn't this working? Almost like I knew that we were onto something, but it like wasn't quite landing. It wasn't quite working. And I think, the idea of emergence is probably another place to go, because we're starting to throw that word around. And I know I guess we could consider all three of us educators, but you guys have done it professionally. And and I'm sure you've come across, some of the ideas where like, a child is a lamp to be lit, not a vessel to be filled.
I mean, that was like what Paradigm's favorite saying.
Yeah. So I would love to hear from Keith, you and Steve about like what's there as far as the idea of emergence versus, trying to fill a person's head with knowledge or achieve a certain goal even.
I mean, immediately what comes to mind is like the indoctrinate versus enlighten, right? Like Utah is big on this, whether you like it or you hate it. There's a lot of oversight and regulation around education right now, specifically trying to control what the teacher is or is not able to say in the classroom, right? Gone are the days when we trusted our teachers, For better or for worse, there are definitely things that needed that trust to be regulated, right? That power to be regulated, and there were definitely things that have overcorrected. But even still, the kids haven't changed, right? I mean, they have in lots of ways. Attention span is much smaller. Their reasons for being and doing have shifted and changed, or at least the language around them has, right? But one thing that hasn't changed is that kids are both gullible and curious, and also stubborn and resistant at the same time. They carry those poles with them in ways it's almost like watching a tightrope walker with the giant pole in their hands, right? Like the weights are all the way out, further than they can control them, and they're constantly teetering on the edge of that balance between diving in hook, line, and sinker and joining your cult, as the teacher, which I've had happen before, right? And completely rejecting not just your ideas, but your way of being, right? They're constantly between this back and forth. And they're being inundated with people who are vying for their obedience, their loyalty, their fervor, right? And so, like, I really feel for these kids, because there are very few people who have an objective interest in their good. Yeah. Right. And I wish that wasn't the case. We think, well, they're teachers. They don't care. But a lot of teachers have an agenda. They want their kids to feel a certain way. They have a political bias or a religious one or whatever that comes out in the way they teach, hence the regulation. Parents want small versions of themselves to avoid the mistakes they made and be the perfect iteration of their own being, right? So even though they want what's best for the kid is defined by their own belief system. So this these children, are constantly moving between groups that are varying degrees of dogmatic, right? And actually, the times where I've seen the emergent group form is when the students are the ones forming the group. When you hand them the microphone and you say, what do you want to talk about today? And the conversation blows up in something that you had no desire, thought, or idea that you were ever going to have a conversation about in the classroom, right? You're talking about like the politics of video game design and the emergence of highbrow horror, and you're like, what in the? I'm an English teacher. What are we talking about right now? But it's the things that they're lighting up about and they're passionate about, and it's why are they talking? And if you can tap into why they're talking, you can tap into that power, because if they're having to talk about the book I want to talk about, then they're just a little dogmatic group that I'm trying to get to repeat after me, right?
Yeah.
But if we can break open the resistance they have, because they've been told to shut up. Doesn't matter which kid they are, doesn't matter how much they're praised. They've been told to shut up, right?
Yeah.
And so if you can break that resistance behind being who they are out loud, you get a really amazing, powerful little group of unbroken batteries, energy fields.
I love the tap in language that you're using, because it feels so alive. And I think what we're getting at is a healthy group field is full of life. And once life is there, we don't need to have, like, you can drop all the agendas, because that's when the emergence starts to happen. And I hear you describing that, where you're like, how is this even happening when we were talking about video games or whatever? All of a sudden, like, people are waking up, their minds are open, and most likely something far beyond any original attention gets achieved in that space, because life was let in.
Yeah.
And I think this is, so the key, if I had to say a key, just to drop the key to group work, that I think is it. And it's to tap in and listen to life. And that means, first of all, that you don't think you're it. Your life isn't it. Life is living you. And you're not living life, right? So you got to get that straight first off. And most people are like, I've got to live my life. I've got to teach this class. I've got to do this thing. I've got to take this shit. And whatever. Way. That shit is taking you, man. You ain't going to stop it. Right? It's life is living you. Yeah. It's calling you. You're eating. You're shitting. You're taking in information. You're living your day. You're waking up. You are being lived. You are being breathed. So to have this honest respect for life is the first thing. And that's what happens in a good classroom. I don't care what the shit is going on and who's programming what, or what they can't say, or what they say. If the teacher is sitting there and he is honoring the life of that individual student, and then the life that comes together, not just the individual, because now I don't want to be manipulating that, right? I'm working with this group and I'm seeing the life in that class. It reminds me of my very first class I taught at Paradigm. It was a total shit show. And every one of those kids loved it. They loved that shit show because there was life in those kids. I don't know, that little group of kids.
Oh yeah.
They were hilarious and inappropriate half the time. And it was terrible and wonderful. Right? And it was just, I had no idea how to manage a classroom, and I didn't manage that classroom. And that was probably why it worked.
The second you try and manage the classroom, you have failed.
Paradigm was wild enough at the time that they could get away with it. I don't know what we did in that class. I don't know if I signed anything, but man, that class was alive.
Yeah.
I'm remembering when I was in the LDS church and I was in the primary, and I had a class of 5-year-olds. And this still blows my mind that some of the things that just happened there. But so I'm teaching this group of 5-year-olds, and I'm with them for 2 hours every week on a Sunday. And I remember how much I hated that when I was a kid. I just hated it. And I was like, can this be better? Can I still be a good, obedient Mormon teacher and have this be better? And so I blurred the rules a little, and I would spend the whole first part of class just letting each one of the kids come up to the front and just talk. And it was just the most delightful and magical thing. The sad part is that part of the reason I was doing that is so that I would have their hearts, and I knew that they would listen to what I would say if I had their hearts. And so I think there's some, I don't know, like some awareness there, some sacredness to what happens when you invite, different ages or power dynamics into a group field and capture their hearts. Like, what's the responsibility? And can you keep giving the power back to life instead of abusing the fact that you're holding people's hearts in this space?
It's so difficult when you hold hearts like that. Like, it's so difficult not to take that and use it.
Yeah.
And think of it like something that you're wielding rather than, something that you're facilitating or something that you're growing, right?
Yeah.
So, like, I remember being in a class where they literally created a religion around me as a deity. Like, it was insane. It was my very first year my second year at Paradigm. And I had to go to the principal and say, look, a lot of these kids in their surveys are going to tell you that I am God and that I need a raise. They did it. I didn't ask them to. Like, it was intense. It was really intense. And we were doing this simulation and we were reading Wild Swans, about communist China. And so we did a simulation of the Democratic Republic of Room 208, like my classroom, right? And I'm not the first one who came up with it. It's not like a unique thing to me, but it was basically reproducing communism with me as Chairman Mao, right? And so they were doing hourly propaganda and prayers and reciting the anthem and the pledge and the teaching each other. I had secret police, and I almost got too swept up in my own simulation. I could feel myself becoming the god that they had, the false god that they had made me out to be. And it was scary to realize how much power you wield. Like, when I left Paradigm and walked into another school building, it felt like going from like a senior in high school to a freshman in college. It was wild. It was like all of my power and rock star status was stripped away. And I had to realize who I was without that energy that was being fed to me by this cult of personality I created at a workplace, But I didn't intend to. I wasn't like, I didn't intend to. And at the time, I kind of guess I needed it, right? Like I needed a validation group because I wasn't getting that at home, right? And I wasn't able to walk away from that until I had something else in myself to fuel that validation. But it was never my intention to create this thing, this like chamber of self-ego inflation, right?
Cult of personality.
Yeah, and it's wild, but it's intoxicating, and it was so hard to leave that place. Because I had created a power source for myself. And I think that's where a lot of these groups get in trouble. Like, I don't think they start off with the intention of seizing power from the masses. I think they start off with somewhat good, maybe a little selfish intentions. But that whole thing about power corrupting, that's legit, man. Like, it's real. And so when a group hands you their power, it's really hard to hand it back.
Well, and I think that's kind of the evolution of humanity. The Gene Keys, Richard Rudd. Richard Rudd talks about how the evolution of humanity is we're creating a new power center that's more heart. And it's more in your solar plexus. He calls it the solar plexus brain or whatever, the solar plexus function, or I can't remember exactly what it is, but this idea that we're just now coming online with this thing that I think meets will and lets will and love work together. That's how I understand it. If you're a GT's person, you're probably like, that's totally wrong, and that's fine. But I want to go so radical here. I want to go way radical for a second and come from another perspective, and that is that having any class or purpose for any group, this is dishonoring from a certain perspective. So, like, imagine a place where I had no agenda for any meeting, I had no agenda for any class, I had no agenda for any group of people, spiritual people that were getting together. Like, what happens is the moment that I think I know what that group should be doing, I've dishonored life because I've stopped listening. Right? But but what if we just got together? What if I just got a group of kids together? I was trying to explain free school to my son the other day. And if you've ever read the book Free to Learn, it's a great book about free school in, I think, North Carolina. And where the kids just show up, there's all these resources, there's nature, there's teachers, but there's no class, no agenda.
Curriculum, no nothing.
No curriculum. And the kids and the kids up, and there's mentors there, there's people there, hey, what are you interested in? And they might make suggestions, but they have to be suggestions. They can't tell them what to do. And the kids they show up, and a lot of them have been to school, they do nothing for about 6 months. It's part of the program. And then they're like, well, this guy seems really interested in this. This guy's building a boat. This guy's on the computer making cool shit happen. Like, how do I do that? So this kid's out in nature catching fish. That looks fun, So when there's no agenda other than just serving life, like teaching 5-year-olds out of a fucking manual? Are you kidding me?
What? We do it. We say
no 5-year-old needs a manual to worship.
Yeah.
They are. We should be worshiping them. We should be following them around and taking 5-year-old lessons. Like that's what Plotkin says to do in Nature and Soul. He's like, follow a 2-year-old around and just do what they do, and you'll learn more about what it is to be innocent and more about life, and you learn a lot of other ways. So, like, from a perspective, and I know this isn't practical, and I know it's idealistic, right? So, but like getting any group into a process that you have an agenda isn't serving life. Now, I mean, we can all listen together, and maybe that's what school started out as. And, like, hey, I like this a lot at Paradigm. We did, like, what should we do? How do we serve the soul of the student, right? Like, we were asking that question a lot. We were thinking about that until the regulators came in and said, you got to do better in the test. And then we stopped thinking about that pretty much.
I mean, I would say really until fear took over.
Yeah.
Right. And the problem is, like, the problem with that group, like, if we think about Paradigm, and people who are out there have no idea, but it's a liberal arts charter school in Utah, whatever. It's fine. But it was a group of people who were dedicated to education and to the liberal arts, right? And the problem I got in there, and what I saw was anger that turned into fear. Mm-hmm. And underneath that was love. There was so much love. But there was like, fuck the state, which turned into getting fucked by the state, And that then turned into, oh, fuck the state, right? So and along that way, the identity just got lost and corrupted. And that group lost that emergent power that it had in a lot of ways. They're working towards getting it back. They're doing a great job over there. But that's a real cycle that takes place in a lot of these groups.
Yeah, I saw the same thing in midwifery.
Yeah.
Exact same cycle. Like, anger for the hospital, then fear, and then it just then that whole system has power instead of the emergence of what's possible. And
I think that actually, Keith, explains like the individual and group spiritual path a lot, where we're like, fuck the church, or like, you can't tell me what to do. I'm going to do my own thing. And then that becomes something else. It becomes acting out rather than acting, listening to life and doing something real, with your own meaning path. It's like, it ends up being reactive.
Yeah, and I love that the anger and fear thing got brought in, because I think that's also what has happened, just basic parenting. Like, what if we could experience a newborn child as an emergence of life that we actually have curiosity around instead of expectations of? And like, what's possible just from that little shift of, I'm curious about this wonder of life, instead of, oh my God, I'm afraid he's not going to be able to make a living. Like, people are thinking that when their child is born, about already having them run through the system and have a job that makes enough money that they don't have to be afraid. And even in the church, like, blessing, it made me sick, even when I was in the church, how many fathers blessed their daughters that they would get married in the temple.
God, I can't even listen to it anymore.
And their sons that they would go on a mission. And I'm just like, you don't know that. You don't know if that's going to be good for that child.
Get a good paying job at Google someday.
Yeah.
And that he'll be able to take care of his family.
I mean, seriously, any agenda, and this is the problem, like with materialism in general, and the way that we do education is it's obedience and entitlement training. It's what's Plotkin's term for the next one? It's a primary economic training. Rather than being an honest inquiry into a person,
right?
And if I go to a place and we're doing yoga, that's awesome. I'll take on yoga. That's the discipline of the class, right? But if I have if I have a yoga teacher or a teacher of any kind, of any practice, that assumes that I should be a yogi like they are a yogi, they've lost the plot. And I can the same feel way, it.
Yeah.
I'm so sensitive to that now. It's just like, no.
Yeah.
But somebody that's there offering yoga and offering a field of practice that I can participate in, I'll take on that discipline with them, and that's lovely. But if you're going to impose yoga on me, like a drill instructor, and like something in you thinks I should do it a certain way, and that's what happens all the fucking time. It doesn't work. Like,
well, it doesn't work, but
it works really well.
It works because that's what
in the wrong direction
you almost have to do in order to make money, right? You have to find something that is dogmatic and radical that is going to capture people into that spell of, like what Keith was talking about with his classroom. There is something kind of magical about having a guru, about living into a myth with someone. And if somebody believes in something enough and you could get caught up in that, it feels more alive than what most of us are sitting in all the time.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I'm sitting here, doing the work that I'm doing and seeing these ways that the tools get weaponized and capitalized, and it's frustrating. It's frustrating because you almost have to be dogmatic and radical to have a brand.
Yeah.
And there are very few, if any, people that can actually hold that and not, like you were saying, Keith, actually take the power and run with it.
Yeah.
Well, even if I opened up shop and I said, hey, everybody, come to me and I'll teach you how to work with a group by listening to live. Even that is like a ridiculous thing, right? Like the reason why groups are the thing is because that's what happens when you listen to life. I mean, when you think about it, that's what Earth did. That's what Earth is doing. This is the reality I know. Is the biology and the energetic process we're all in. What we share in common is that we're all on Earth.
Well, and so far, Earth is still peopling.
Earth is
We'll see how long that lasts.
Still putting up with people
But-
as the option. Yeah.
No, Earth itself. We are a process of Earth. It's not that Earth is putting up with us and we're opposed to Earth, and that's where we lost it, right? Earth is part of the group. Like, it's kind of the main deal. And when we stop listening to Earth, then we stop being harmonious with each other too.
Yeah.
Like, one of the secrets of tribes is that, you know, even though they had their own dogma, and certainly all tribal work wasn't like this, you know, panacea. It wasn't like
you can romanticize that.
You can romanticize it all you want, but one thing they did have is they listened to Earth, and they didn't go beyond what Earth would tolerate. They didn't, you know, they might have, you know, been people sacrificed to the group literally or for the group, or, you know, in some way, you know, that might have gotten out of hand. But the truth is that listening to Earth was a lot better than what we're doing. Like, you know, you might have had a tribe go hungry, but we're going to have a hungry Earth if we don't start listening, you know, to the energy, what's happening. You know, ultimately this gets back, and ecological doesn't even cover it because it's relational. You know, Earth does groups. Earth produces families. Earth produces ecology. You know, ecosystems, and it produces complexity beyond what we can even imagine, even just within one cell. You know, and we have no idea. We still don't have, we have no idea how a brain works. We have no idea how, you know, how, like, we know a lot more than we have known, but, like, I don't think we ever will know. I think it's a mystery. And that's ultimately the thing, is we get back to this mystery. Earth is producing mystery, and at the center of a group that works is mystery, rather than I'm using this group idea to get somewhere, to do something. Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, it was. I don't want to say I'm lost, but I definitely am feeling a little bit out somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm like not grounded right now. So, like, help ground me a little bit. What should I be looking for? Because it sounds like no matter what I'm doing, like if the only way that I'm going to find the best group is to go find a group without any intention, I'm like, how do I make a group without intending to make a group?
Right. So this is the thing. It's like, of course there's intention, and I think part of it is that every single human needs to get to a place, not every single human, but, like, to do this, more of us need to get to a place where we can really feel our own intuitive process. So and then feel where life is moving us to, and even if we don't know, that's okay. Like, even if, like, we're not, like, getting, like, great messages through our body saying, this is where you should go, Keith, you know, this is what you should eat, this is how you should be. At least the question, you know, being in the mystery of it and asking, like, if I sat in a, you know, and every time I did anything, I asked my body, my life, is this honoring? You know, I don't do that. Is this honoring in this moment? Should I be in this, right? If I ask that question enough, I've got to think I'm going to move more into harmony. But what if, as a people, we really and we really took time to sit with the earth and sit with ourselves and start asking those questions before we decided what we think needs to be done, rather than just thinking about it or you know, coming up with a problem or doing it because it's our job, you know. I mean, I think that's a place to start.
Also, I think we could start right here, which is really the only place there ever is, and say, how did we get here? And how much of this was us and how much of this was life? And I'm thinking, you know, this is my first time in Keith's new home, and holy fuck, Keith. I haven't known you that long. And this is our third location, and
they just it keeps becoming more me.
And I feel like your process went from external to more and more internal, and look what life did with you.
Yeah.
And look where it landed you, in a home, in a family.
And that's been the wildest part of it. Like, talking about leaving paradigm and how difficult that was to do, it's amazing what it unlocked. Like, what it opened from my life. Like, my life literally became a whole new thing with a whole new power and all new drive and momentum. And like, I went from a classroom teacher to now I'm a vice principal of an incredible school in the space of a few years, when I stopped giving a fuck about why I was in the group or what the group could give me. And I went, like, when I leaned into coaching, for example, my career shot forward. When I leaned out of the toxic relationships, be it with my ex or with the school itself, all of a sudden, it's like getting unstuck from the mire. It's like I fell into my life from that point on, you know?
Yeah.
And it's been wild. Like,
So you said mire, but I heard Maya, which also works.
There you go.
Maya means illusion, and it's the Buddhist word for illusion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because your accent.
Yes.
Maya.
Yeah, it does that. The Maya. That was my life.
Yeah, and I feel go ahead.
No, it's one of those things, like, you don't realize the tendrils that have themselves around you until you're free of them. And I don't know, I've been watching a lot of anime, so like a lot of like visual imagery of emotion is coming up for me right now. And you know, that every one of those hurts to be released from. You know, like, you think about getting your foot out of mud and it's like, oh, that's kind of uncomfortable. But no, it's like tearing a tendon free. It's almost what it feels like. It's very visceral. To remove the things that are holding you to a dogmatic system and that are holding you back, that feel like they're safety. Yeah. It feels like you're cutting your own strings every time you do it. You know, like you're cutting your own umbilical cord every time you do it. Like, it's just rough. And I remember driving back from Revival, which is the last time we recorded anything, and just sitting there being like, what the fuck is my life? Like I'm driving back from Revival and tomorrow I'm like fucking off to Europe or something. And like, you know, then I'm moving and all that. And I'm just like, what the hell happened? Yeah. And it just like, even mirroring that moment to the year before when we were at Revival, you know, and I was in a small like 2-bedroom apartment and had just gotten divorced and like was in this, what felt like a free fall of self-discovery. And now I feel like I've discovered a new part of myself, because no one ever discovers their whole self, but a new part of myself that's a lot heavier than the first part. So the falling feels faster somehow. I don't know. Too much. I'm getting too visual now. Yeah.
No, I love that. And I think of the weird commitment to not having a relationship form that Cedar and I sort of fell into, and how many just absolutely wild and wonderful adventures and experiences we've had that we didn't have to try to make them happen. You know, it wasn't like, oh, here's a guy I can finally sing in a band with. You know, I have this on my checklist of what I need in a future partner is, you know, he can play the banjo and accompany me when I'm singing. Of course.
It's nice.
Of course, that's somewhere on a, like, you know, bucket list in my past, I'm sure. But it was just such an emergence. You know, one thing after another that we've done. And our life since Revival has also been, like, next level wild. And I think we're going to touch on some of those adventures in the coming episodes. But the one that I want to come back to today is that we held our first retreat together. And part of our intention for this experience was to see if we could use some of the principles from the Plotkin material, the Bill Plotkin Nature and the Human Soul, to help people recapture some of those pieces in their childhood where their soul wasn't honored. And if we could do that in a group, almost like recreating a family setting that would be honoring to an emergent soul instead of forcing or dogmatizing that. And we only had 22 hours together. It was initially going to be longer, but it ended up being shorter because of our other adventure that came in. But I left that absolutely stunned. So it wasn't that we had no intention, and obviously we had to tell some people about it and give them an idea of what we thought might happen. But it was almost like there was enough form to get the signal out, and the people showed up, and there was enough spaciousness and freedom for that emergence that something that to me feels miraculous happened with this group of 7 people. That we are still, part of that was to do 6 integration calls afterward. And so we're still kind of in the middle of that with this group, and it's been really beautiful. As a, quote, facilitator, this was the first time that I was able to enter one of my own containers and I feel like receive, almost like come into an equal space with the other participants. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And yeah, I just feel like there were things that shifted and healed in me that I've been working on for years with a lot of consciousness and a lot of process. And all of a sudden, because there was enough love and enough people with enough goodwill, life just did it in an instant.
Yeah, I love both of those stories, and I feel that in a way, even talking about group technology is like doing it backwards, right? Because we're just what I can notice is that something's emerging right now, and it's more about that. It's more about doing this with less identity, individual identity, and more surrender. And I've had a few of those moments this year where it's just been like, what the fuck is my life?
How did I get here?
One of the things is I've made so many friends this year, all over the country, and over the world. Yeah. Meeting people who are following their noses, and their noses are leading them to the same in the same places that my nose leads. Yeah. And when it's appropriate or when it's helpful for us to meet, it just happens. I'm not doing it, not to say that there aren't practical things to worry about or to work out, but just that it's happened that way. And I guess that's what Alan Watts says. He's like, when you stop worrying about making things happen and become a happening, things start happening with you. Which I think is that energy. But it's worth the inquiry, and it's worth to sit. There is this cycle. I'm seeing this cycle where I'm listening to life, and I'm making observations, and I'm feeling the flows as they happen, and then I'll find an idea like Plotkin, who I think has been listening to life for some time now, and he has this beautiful seeing on where we've left Earth and where we've left soul, and maybe some ways to think about that are helpful, right? And then I want to practice those, but you can't practice them alone, Right. So then you get other people to practice them with, and that kind of thing happens, right? And I think that's kind of everything, Keith. What I see in your journey is that you had to move out of toxicity, And then you found people who were on that same trail.
Yeah.
Like kind of doing that with you in that way.
And I needed, like, you don't want to be in the space that I was in because I needed someone else to do it first. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we do.
We always do. But that's why we start in families.
But it's such a hard thing because if I hadn't met my wife, right? Like we were best friends for 2 years. If I had never known her, if I hadn't suggested to the principal at the time that she'd be a great fit for the school, where the hell would I be right now? Probably in the exact same place. Probably getting ready to run another show at Paradigm in the exact same space I was at, 3 years ago. And it's scary to think that your whole life can hinge on individual people. But if you look back enough, you see so many individual people that have that like hinging factor in your life. And it's just, I wanted to, like, when we talk about the group work, I think about getting divorced, especially when you are a foreigner living in Utah who is at the same time going through deconstruction, and you find yourself standing alone in a classroom surrounded by kids who don't really know you, right? And realize that all of your family is gone. And I've been in this search for years to try and find my people again, to try and find a support structure, and it does start with the family, but the question always comes to me of like, why is it so hard for adults to find friends? And I think it's because we look for friends selfishly too. We look for friends and support groups because that divorce was really hard, and it would have been less hard if I had someone to talk to about it, and we look for friends because I'm an extrovert and I need something to do on a Saturday night, instead of looking for friends and for groups and for people because that's just human nature and it's just what I do. It's what we all do. Yeah.
I love that Cedar brought in the earth peoples and earth groups. Like, and I feel like your thing, even with your wife, illustrates that. Like, life is doing this. It's going to bring us together. It's going to put that person on your path in the exact right moment to drop that piece that your mom or dad didn't give you. Because I think that's what a lot of this like hyper-individualism and this hardship that everybody seems to have on the apps and finding friends and community is partially because what we're looking for in friends and romance and community is stuff that our parents didn't give us. And looking for one person to do that, what really a family and community was supposed to do for us as a child, it's too big of a burden. Nobody wants to be your community.
You're everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, what grace in my life that I've had these people in those moments that were like, hey, here's a little piece. Here's a little piece of a yes to you that should have been there when you were a kid, but here it is now. And one of the things that I've experienced this year in group field is when there's that many people who are a yes to you, you can land a lot of those pieces all at once. And what happens then is your genius that you've been hiding for your whole life because you're terrified starts to emerge. And then that genius actually starts nourishing the group, and the group then, reinforces the genius, and it becomes this really, really beautiful, juicy experience for everyone.
Oh.
Yeah, it's there's something we're rewriting here, and it's I think a hangover from like the most diehard materialism. And it's like, we have to go find a friend, or I need to go find a community or whatever. But the truth is, like, I'm me. And me is already connected. And one of the things I think is that there's a soul field. And on that soul field, I'm connected to everything on this planet. not on this planet. Everything in the universe is connected to me in some way, and my soul has that connection. I believe that. Don't tell me to prove it. I just think it's true. And what happens is when I really listen to my soul, other people show up who are in the way of that work, not in the way of it, but they're in the way with me. They're going that way with me. So like, we're used to dating apps these days where you're shopping like you would for an Amazon item, and
looking for a life partner.
And it materializes people, I'm not saying that you can't meet great people online and that's not a good way to go. I'm just saying that the mindset that happens there tends to be this thing like I'm trying to make something happen rather than just happening. What I did is I just showed up. I felt really good at song circles. So I showed up at song circles, and I showed up at temples, and I showed up at places, and that's where I met Soch. Where I met most of the friends that I have now. I'm following music. I'm following the vibe, and then the people that are around that are often the people that have medicine for me, that I have medicine for, that we can do this work together. This quest of wanting to do a podcast, of just like looking into this perspective of like what is the meaningful path, post Mormonism, but just generally, like, how do I find meaning? How do I see this life from a perspective that is not just post-Mormon or whatever, right? Or just psychological or whatever. Like, what is this question? This what is life? And that brought us into this path. That brought us into doing this thing. You heard something that I had posted or something, and you were like, "Oh, Steve should do a podcast. I like doing podcasts. Let's talk."
Let's see if he wants to do a podcast.
Yeah, see if I want to do a podcast. And here we are, down some time and episodes and
seasons
and
rabbit holes and epiphanies and
so many rabbit holes and so many diatribes by Cedar and so many wonderful things like that, right? And I really just think, to get our brains switched, to really see things from this flow perspective and to lean more into the trust and acceptance from that side is so hard because it doesn't work on our timing. And it doesn't always give us what we think we want in our brains. It gives us what we need more. And then the brain is trying to figure out why did this happen? What's going on here? What is my life?
Yeah.
Because like the life is happening through you, and your brain is literally not keeping up. It can't, because it wouldn't have done this.
Right. Yeah, I wouldn't have made the choices I had made if I was the person that didn't make the choices.
Right.
So now that I am the person who made the choices, I can't understand the person who didn't make the choices before, because he wasn't the person who made the choices now.
Right.
And on that note, go be the person that will make the choice, right? Like, it's real though. I was thinking about this like over and over again. It's like, how do you decide to be the person that makes the choices that later you're appreciative of, right? And refocusing from that dogmatic, determined, desperate individuality to community and family and people is the only way it's ever worked. Like, not just for me, like just period. Consciousness is not a singularity, right? Like we're all consciousness, right? Well, maybe it is though the way back, but
that's in a few episodes.
That might be in a few episodes. I'm getting ahead of myself, even though I don't know what I'm talking about. But like we are, even as manifestations of consciousness, there's a reason there's so many of us, right? It's because only through interaction and through group and community work do we actually achieve or accomplish or learn anything.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll hit singularity and differentiation and some of these ideas down the road in this season. So, it's more than just like, hey, we're doing groups. It's like we're listening to life, and that's the whole point of the podcast.
to have that conversation.
Here
with
we
life.
But the conversation is the group. It involves group, and it involves how we are and what we need to do in ourselves so that we can be more cohesive individually, as a family, as a community, as a society, as a nation, as a world, as a universe, a galaxy, as a cosmos. I mean, this thing goes all up and down, and it's really, I think, it's funny because it's the oldest thing in the book, but I think it's kind of like also on the cutting edge of human consciousness. There's something coming online that is working with our tribal selves and with our evolved our what we've built over time in this individual thing that we've been doing.
Yeah, and I think when you go away from something and you turn around and look at it from a different perspective and then you come back to it, it's going to have a different meaning, a different consciousness, probably a more mature relationship. And I really think, come back to the conversation with life. If you don't have a person, a family, a community right now, you have life. Sit down and have a conversation with this moment, with life right now, and it will organize you.
And we'll be here to talk about it.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Unless we're called on to something else,
Who knows?
Always possible.
For now, we're going to try to be here.
Right now, we're going to intend that this generally happens. But, even sitting down and do a podcast with a topic. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm not gonna have a topic. We're just forget I said that. It's trying to be funny. Thank you for joining us this episode for Conversations with Life. We're glad you were here and listening, and we'd love to hear from you. You can join us online, Conversations with Life. Podcast, Facebook group, Soul and Spirit Wellness Conversations with Life. Come look us up. Listen to the rest of our episodes. Like and subscribe. Let us know what you think. And I hope you have a fantastic week.